Hello and welcome to the second session of the Breakthrough Curriculum into Action Professional Learning Series on Listening and Talking and Oracy. My name is Elaine McHenry and I'm a member of the SBC Way Inspire Learning Curriculum team. In today's session, I'm joined by Lorna Dolan from our SBC Early Years Teacher team, who will share with us her expertise and insight into how we can approach listening and talking at early level. You will hear from Kirsty Banks, also a member of the Early Years Teacher team, who will share with us the digital tools available to support listening and talking, not only at early level, but across all levels. The focus of today's session is to explore further the culture of talk and how it can be incorporated into the classroom. Before we begin, take a few moments to reflect on the quote on the screen. If you wish, pause the video for a moment and share your reflections with others, or just continue with the session. The QR code on the screen will take you to a file of supporting resources that you will find useful as we progress through today's session. Take some time now before we begin to scan the QR code and download the file of materials. You will need your Glow login. Each SBC Way professional learning session will follow a similar format and will include core input, reflective questions and follow-up activities leading to new understanding. We hope to make the sessions as interactive as possible. The aims of today's session are to introduce the digital tools available to support listening and talking in the classroom, as well as to explore the two main talk categories that feature in the listening and talking progression pathway and the different talk types that exist within them. You will then be introduced to talk tactics and sentence stems to support these and hear how this approach can be used to structure talk. We'll then take time to consider the role of modelling in the successful teaching of listening and talking before ending with some practical activities to support talk tactics in the classroom. At the end of last session, you were tasked with creating talk guidelines, either as individual classes or as a school, and to create a baseline assessment of where your learners are in terms of listening and talking, and to make a small change to your environment, thinking interaction, spaces and experiences. Pause the video here and share your what went wells and even better ifs with your colleagues and any observations from your baseline assessment. Be prepared to share back to the group. When you're ready to continue, restart the video and we'll continue today's session with input from Kirsty on what digital tools are out there and how they can support our learning and teaching in listening and talking.
So just to go through a few digital tools that can support oracy at early level. To support listening, practitioners can use the Voice Memos app to record sounds around them. It's essentially a dictaphone app, so it might be their voices, the sounds in the environment, or you might go on a walk and capture some of the sounds that you hear on the walk. GarageBand can also be used as a voice recorder, and it actually has a voice recording option where you can use filters so children can distort their voice. They can speak and sing songs into it and play with the filters it has. It's got things like from a chipmunk to a robot. GarageBand also has a live loops option where you can play with live loops and the children can play with those sounds as they listen to them along to the beat. They can choose to play one sound or multiple sounds on top of each other, multiple beats. You could also find an online rhyming game on the smartboard. Might be Top Marks or something like that, and that also supports children's gross motor skills using the smartboard, enables them to use it together, collaborate on it, and crossing that midline when they're stretching to tap all the parts of the smartboard as well. A few ideas to support talking. Practitioners could use the speech to text on the keyboard. If you see here, I've circled the microphone. If you bring up the keyboard, tap that microphone, and the children can speak into that and it will type the words that you're speaking basically. And it does mean that the children have to speak clearly, so it recognises their words and they have to separate their words and understand about word boundaries, because that can be helpful. Keynote Live allows you to superimpose a background and has a live video, a bit like this essentially, and you can take away the background, put a photo in the background, and the children can talk about their favourite toy or their weekend or their holiday with something in the background, and you can screen record that to capture that as well. In the Clips app, you can use emojis for them to talk about their feelings, so they can use the emojis as prompts and maybe make the same faces as those emojis as well, and record a video of themselves talking about that emotion and how it feels. We would always recommend that in early level you use the guided access feature on the iPads, which ensures that the iPad stays in one app and children are unable to navigate away from the app that you choose for them. This allows for freedom with guidance and enables children to be more independent with their iPad. If you'd like any support with any of these tools, please do get in touch with your early years teacher. So further up the school, there are numerous digital tools available. Again, using the dictation tools that I talked about on the previous slide, which is that microphone on the keyboard, that will support fluency by encouraging children to think. So when I speak out loud into my iPad, does it type everything I want it to? If not, how could I change my tone, my volume, my speech to do so? On Keynote Live or on iMovie's green screen feature, you can with both of these tools, you can record maybe a news report or some other type of speaking exercise, which then basically these features allow a photo background to be placed behind the person presenting so they can pretend they're actually in situ. If you're using the Pages app, which is like the Microsoft Word Apple version of Microsoft Word, there is presenter mode, which actually works as an auto cue or teleprompter for students to support them when they speak in front of an audience, like I'm doing now. The speed of the scrolling text that goes up on the page can be adjusted to help the child speak slowly and clearly. It also allows you to change the size, font and colour of the text and background to allow for different reading preferences of the children. You can also use iMovie to create like a documentary style interview, perhaps. They might want to pretend they're interviewing a famous person from history. Children can put together images, videos on this app and enhance their images and videos with voiceovers, effects, titles and music, as well as using a range of editing features for the actual video itself. They could create maybe an information video about their local area using the Clips app. This is also a video app. It's actually simpler than iMovie and will be easier for the younger learners to use. But essentially, you do a similar thing to iMovie with less features. Just pop in those photos and videos to make your own video. You can also use the GarageBand app to make a podcast potentially by recording some voice and interviewing somebody, maybe a classmate about if you're having a debate in class, maybe about their side of the debate. You can pop in some little jingles and sound bites in that as well. There are inbuilt tools in the iPad to support understanding of vocabulary. So for example, in PDFs or if you're in the Books app, if you tap and hold on a word, it will select it and then it will come up with a lookup. So you tap on lookup and it will define the word that you've selected with text, sometimes with a picture, maybe provide a dictionary definition and even translate it as well. Speaking of translation, if you go over to the Google Translate app, there are spoken translation tools where you can use the transcribe function. You speak into the app and it will translate what you're saying instantly. And there's also a conversation function on that app where it transcribes essentially both ways. So you speak into the app, it will translate what you've said and read that translation out loud. And then you can do it the other way too. It's really helpful for interacting with children and families who have English as an additional language. You can find a wealth of short demo videos on the Inspire Learning YouTube channel that will give you little short demo videos to support you using digital technology in your classroom. Or as well as this, you can get in touch with your Cluster Inspire support teacher for more information on how you can support your children to use digital tools in your classroom.
Thank you, Kirsty. I hope you all found some gems in what Kirsty had to share. To revisit our quote from the work of Barnes in 1982, that learning floats on a sea of listening and talking, there are two purposes to talk: learning to talk and learning through talk. Learning to talk encompasses the physical aspects of talk, but also includes the skills of choosing the right vocabulary, using the correct grammar, expressing ideas and opinions clearly, as well as listening carefully to respond appropriately to those of others. Learning through talk, often referred to as messy talk, helps learners build up confidence in using oral communication skills. It allows learners to explore and practice sharing thoughts and ideas, asking the question, what does my idea sound like when I say it aloud, as well as acting on or reacting to those ideas of others. Bringing these two types of talk together is the sweet spot in the middle, oracy, the development of oral communication skills. Our SBC Way Listening and Talking Progression Pathway focuses on presentational and exploratory talk, two categories of talk which are primarily associated with the holistic development of oral communication skills, providing a solid foundation on which to build other talk categories. Presentational talk is often considered the product of listening and talking, reporting back, sharing learning, giving a presentation. Presentational talk often goes unchallenged unless questions are invited. Exploratory talk, on the other hand, is social, collaborative, and builds skills for higher order thinking, giving learners the opportunity to try out new ideas, gather and sort information, try out how thoughts sound, and gauge opinion. Exploratory talk is meant to be challenged or questioned in order to deepen thinking. It is important to say here that there are several other talk categories, including dispositional talk, which is the development of a positive behaviours towards talk, cumulative talk, where the group agrees without challenge, and dialogic talk, a form of more in-depth exploratory talk. Pause the video here while you take some time to discuss the two different talk categories. Think about your own learners and the impact it may have on their oral communication skills. What benefits do you see? What drawbacks might there be? Take a few minutes to share thoughts and ideas back to the main group and continue when you are ready. The research for the 1970s and 80s that led to the development of talk categories led to, in the 1990s, these categories being broken down further into 15 types of talk, much in the same way that fiction and non-fiction writing can be broken down into different genre or text type. Pause the video here and take some time to categorise the talk types. Which would you say were exploratory and which would you describe as presentational? Let's take a closer look at exploratory talk and the talk types within it. Exploratory talk is messy talk, talk that can be challenged or questioned, talk that gives learners the opportunity to explore ideas, hear what thoughts sound like when spoken out loud, talk that provides the opportunity to learn from others, to build on existing ideas or take on board new ones. Opportunities for learners to engage in each type of talk plays a big part in the development of oral communication skills, creating opportunities to enhance the skills of being an effective contributor and a confident individual, one who can clearly articulate their own ideas, thoughts and opinions and learn from those of others. I'm sure the talk types within this category came as no surprise. We often ask learners to discuss, share an opinion or compare something. Perhaps going forward as we set these tasks, we do so through a more focused lens, a lens looking at the oral communication skills we wish to develop as highlighted on the Oracy framework and our progression pathway. So you will have had your own thoughts and ideas as to potential benefits, but just to reiterate, research has shown that there are many benefits to using exploratory talk in the classroom, with the main ones being enhances learning, helps learners deepen their understanding of concepts and ideas, also providing the opportunity to hear and build on the ideas of others. builds communication skills, improves learner ability to use their voice to speak and to articulate thoughts in a clear, ordered way. Promote critical thinking. Exploratory talk presents the opportunity to develop critical thinking skills, to analyse, evaluate, and to create something new from what they have heard. If exploratory talk is set in an environment where learners feel safe, using talk guidelines, it encourages participation from all, making learning through talk a more engaging process. The other talk category our progression pathway focuses on is presentational talk. This is often thought of as a once-a-year activity where our learners stand in front of an audience and talk. It is often the talk category that causes most anxiety in our learners. But if we take the time to think about it, presentational talk happens in the classroom almost on a daily basis. Saying here to your name on the register, sharing a piece of learning at the end of a lesson, talking about your visit to the park are all presentational. They all require the presentational skills highlighted in the Oracy framework and our progression pathway. Whilst we should acknowledge and recognise some may feel nervous about presentational talk and talking in front of an audience, one of its main benefits is the opportunity it gives learners to build confidence and self-esteem. The need to use a clear voice, adjust pace and voice projection are all communication skills developed by presentational talk, alongside audience awareness and ensuring content is relevant. Presentational talk allows for deeper understanding and depth of knowledge of a topic. You need to know what you are talking about to hold your listeners' attention and be prepared to answer questions or to clarify meaning. Presentational talk lends itself well to peer listening. Listening to others allows learners to learn new information and hear new and different perspective viewpoints, and viewpoints that are perhaps a bit different from their own.
Across early level, we can provide learners with lots of motives to talk, discuss and ask questions through both exploratory and presentational talk experiences, and it's important that teachers create a holistic and consistent approach to this. A huge amount of exploratory talk in Primary 1 is facilitated through the provision of extended amounts of time for child-led play, which provides the perfect opportunity for children to interact with one another, sharing and articulating their various ideas. To become experts in exploratory talk, learners should be given plenty of opportunities to practice without too much interference from the teacher. The role of the teacher is to observe their listening and talking skills through the exploratory play and, when appropriate, use their skilled interactions to sensitively model and support learners with the different types of contributions they could make during the type of exploratory talk. As you can see, there are numerous ways in which we can provide exploratory and presentational talk in Primary 1. Talk partners and talk games can be used in Primary 1 to structure Oracy in the classroom through methods such as pairs and circles. However, it is important to keep these types of activities short, as young children will lose focus after 10 or 15 minutes. Early level could include elements of these different headers. For example, instruct card that we've seen before could be when one child tells another how to build a model the same as one already built by the presenter. The informed card could happen during a stop and share moment when a child tells the group or class what they have been learning through their play. It could include which learning powers or learning dispositions they have used. The describe card could be used when a child is telling you about their picture. Entertain could be part of a performance or a class or school experience, for instance, Burns poems, nativity play, class assembly. The retell is seen regularly when learners retell well-known stories using props as part of their play. So as you can see, all the cards that you've looked at before can be used by the teacher in early level to help support what's happening in the class and to help the children to experience both exploratory and presentational styles of talk. To expand on this a little bit, we would like to talk more about how to integrate planned presentational styles of talk into early level. In the previous slide, we've discussed how using a stop and share moment towards the end of a play session is an opportunity for children to use presentational talk skills. They could be sharing with the class what they've learned through the play or the learning dispositions that they've used to play well. For example, I needed to cooperate with Jack to build the train track. I needed to use my imagination to draw my picture of a dragon. I learned to use a ruler to make a straight line. I learned how to mix blue and yellow paint to make green for my picture of a forest. Other examples of presentational talk in early years may be when sharing news in short gather times, where children tell the class about a new baby in the household or that they had a journey on a train into Edinburgh. As well as this, we have over the whole year more structured opportunities for younger children to use presentational talk skills. Some of the aspects are built into the school calendar, and they may be class assemblies, nativity plays, Burns Day reading of Scottish poems. But if the children had never had teachable moments to share to a group or to the class in a largely non-stressful way, then these occasions can cause a lot of stress for younger children. The teachable moments are when you are encouraging aspects of the Oracy framework as the child shares when in the classroom and in a non-stressful environment. Here are examples of what gentle teachable moments may be. Can you use your big voice? Try standing up straight and take a couple of deep breaths before you begin and see if that helps you. We can also ask gentle questions of the child to encourage more detailed sharing to the group. Therefore, we are encouraging the child to use a wider variety of descriptive vocabulary. Many of these strategies for rich talk are already happening in your classroom. You can now use the Oracy framework to structure your interactions with the children to enhance their Oracy skills. You're also now able to use formative and summative assessment for each child's progression over time, developing clear next steps in learning through listening and talking areas of the curriculum.
As we've just heard from Lorna, opportunities for exploratory talk present themselves in many forms. Role play, debate, problem-solving tasks, literary circles, philosophical inquiry are all opportunities to engage in exploratory talk. In session 3, we'll take a closer look at how these can be developed. Likewise, for presentational talk, there are many opportunities for presentational talk throughout the day. Sharing an experience, telling a piece of news, sharing an opinion of a book, sharing new learning or reciting a poem or a rhyme to an audience no matter how big. All the little experiences help to build confidence towards making that final, bigger presentation. Again, it is important that learners experience all forms of presentational talk to enhance their overall communication skills and abilities. Pause the video here for a short break and continue when you are ready. Now that we're familiar with the talk types, we're going to spend some time looking at them in relation to the progression pathway. Across all phases of the progression pathways, each development skill is linked to either exploratory talk, presentational talk, or both. In the example you can see, in second level phase 3, linguistic skills are developed by learners engaging in both talk categories. Use the QR code on the next slide to reach the listening and talking progression pathway on the Launchpad. Take some time to explore the links between the talk categories and the skills from the pathway. Pause the video here and take some time to explore the links between the talk categories and the skills that can be developed through each. Give consideration to the talk types within each category and your own practice. When and where and in what way do you provide opportunities for each talk category and the talk types within them? Which ones do you use most? Which ones do you use least? Which ones would you like to try out? Share your thoughts into the room and continue when you're ready. Now that we've thought about the different talk types we should aim to include in our teaching of listening and talking, we can turn to how we might scaffold that talk. To prompt and support discussion, a set of strategies and techniques referred to as talk tactics have been devised by Voice 21, one of the national oracy education charities. They are designed to promote interactions, enhance understanding, and engage learners in effective discussion. Each component serves a purpose in the structure of a discussion, creating an effective framework for meaningful communications. Each of the talk tactics have associated sentence stems, a particularly useful scaffold which encourages all learners to participate in the discussion, encouraging high-quality exploratory talk. As you may have noticed, each of the talk tactic roles have sentence stems attached to them. Recent research highlights the effectiveness of using sentence stems, sometimes referred to as sentence starters. They're just short, structured phrases which act as a prompt on how to begin, to help learners start their sentence when talking. Sentence stems allow learners, including those less confident, to focus on formulating the content of their answer rather than worrying about how to start saying it. They are a particularly useful scaffold which encourages all learners to participate in discussion, encouraging high-quality exploratory talk. In Session 3, we'll take a further look at sentence stems.
In early level, the talk tactics shown on this slide are likely to happen quite naturally through learners' play. However, if your observations show that this isn't happening, then you must review your spaces and resources to ensure that they are rich and full of relevant opportunities to develop children's talking and listening. You can build opportunities to support these skills in play through your sensitive interactions and the modelling these different types of talk tactics and using prompting or wondering, questioning to enhance children's talk. By first level, it will become more appropriate for children to use these talk tactics within a more structured talking activity. Through provocations such as photographs, objects or items set up on a tough tray, adults can pose a question or prompt children's interest to ask their own questions. This will enable children to discuss, wonder aloud, and build on each other's ideas and/or challenge one another's thinking. In Session 3, we will explore in more detail the different types of planned talk we can use and how to use provocations to promote rich talk. The well-known author for early years, Alistair Bryce Clegg, says in his book, Get Them Talking, Get Them Learning, published in 2012, he says the following: Be a good role model. Children learn so much by example. It's important that adults demonstrate good listening skills, both when listening to each other and when listening to children. You'll find this quote on page 29. All adults in the room should model best practice in the talk guidelines developed for your school, which we all discussed and set out in session 1. Adults should consistently model the keys to communication discussed in the last session. If you want to find out more specifically related to information to keys to communication, please go to the SBC Early Level portal. Within all levels of education, the adult role is to model both exploratory and presentational categories of talk within their interactions on a daily basis. For instance, we will be introducing new vocabulary within our conversations. We will be asking open-ended questions to elicit deeper thinking. We will be listening and responding to each child as an individual. We will ensure there are well-planned experiences for children to explore, problem solve, discover, and comment on their learning, as well as develop our spaces to facilitate high-quality talk opportunities in the spontaneous play. Within a play environment, we need to model a curious, open-ended questioning style when joining in or being a visitor in the play with children. For example, in the role play area, you may comment about why the doll has lots of clothes on, or wonder if there is a menu to go along with the food they have made. Within the construction area, you may gently ask if other materials, loose parts, would be helpful in developing the model or the game or the play that's happening. Whenever an adult is a guest within a child's play, we should remember to model good listening and reflect and comment or add to what the child has said. In doing this, we can also introduce new vocabulary, show the children that they have been heard, perhaps wonder if there could be more challenging addition to the play. We must also be modelling appropriate body language, tone of voice, reflective comments, addition to the knowledge that the child has given, specialist vocabulary. You can also see that we can cover all areas of the Oracy framework through play pedagogy. We can also explicitly support development of the talk guidelines through specific lessons that were short.
As Lorna has just shared, best practice comes from the adult in the room. To allow learners the opportunity to get it right, each of the talk tactic components need to be explained and modelled along with the corresponding sentence stems. The I do, we do, you do, or in the case of listening and talking, I say, we say, you say approach to modelling is vital in teaching listening and talking and oral communication skills because it provides a structured approach to the learning. It starts with clear modelling, offers guided practice to build confidence, and ends with independent practice to ensure mastery. This method helps students develop the strong oral communication skills that we are aspiring for across the local authority. Just to emphasise again, the best practice comes from the adults in the room. Think back to the listening and talking vision that was created last session and the expectations that were set for both learners and adults. The key statements from your vision is what the adults should be modelling to the learner. When it comes to using talk tactics as a method of structuring a discussion, the adult modelling of each of the roles is greatly beneficial to scaffold learner engagement and promotes productive talk. Teachers have 2 additional talk tactics to employ to foster this high-quality talk for learning. If you think of the talk tactics as the thought processes that underpin talk, teaching through modelling helps learners see them in action. The second teacher-specific role is to highlight important ideas or relevant contributions made by the learners. Modelling talk is not just articulating the thought processes of talk tactics. It is also important to model within the 4 aspects of the framework by thinking aloud as you engage in talk. Model the cognitive aspect by asking a learner to clarify their meaning. Give yourself reminders to pronounce words clearly. Think out loud as you think about the linguistic importance of using appropriate vocabulary and model how to invite others into a discussion. How we set up discussion groups has a big impact on the success of a discussion. There are several different arrangements to set groups, often meaningful discussions. Teachers can choose the most appropriate method depending on the purpose of the discussion and the age and stage of the learners. The patterns shown here are best used to develop deeper understanding and critical thinking and to ensure that all voices are heard.
Guys, I know, just take a deep breath, you guys. Give us a few minutes, okay? Justin, can you stop this? Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Having trouble managing your classroom? Here are some of our favorite tricks of the trade.
All right, we're going to come to this table. Please push in your chairs. Come on around. Okay. Remember, give them space.
Chris Opitz creates a fishbowl so that students can learn lessons in manners and math from each other.
Audience, our voices are off. We're just going to look for evidence of a really great discussion, and then we're going to talk about that afterwards. I began using the fishbowl, having kids really closely observe other kids in discussion, identifying particular types of language, ways to ask questions, how to use manners when disagreeing. And once that foundation is built, then the academics can be so much more thoughtful.
Mike started with 8. Kelly had twice as much as Mike, and Joe had half as much as Kelly, which is...
Every teacher out there has probably said at some point in time, turn to your neighbor and talk about this idea. Look at your teammates and talk about this idea.
I'm not quite getting, why did you do those shapes there?
And really watch. If they are talking about the topic that you've asked them to talk about, if they're actually listening to each other and using that language and those social skills, then all of a sudden you have an environment where 30 kids are all learning at the same time.
Share one of your tricks with fellow teachers on Edutopia.
Both talk tactics and discussion arrangements play an important role in encouraging and developing high-quality talk in the classroom. Pause the video here and take some time to discuss what you see as the benefits and possible pitfalls of the talk tactics and how, going forward, you could use the different discussion groupings. Take some time to share to the group and continue when you are ready. Okay, so now we have set up different discussion groupings, introduced and modelled talk tactics. The next step is to encourage our learners to participate. As with every subject area, learners like to hear how well they're doing, and listening and talking is no exception. Praise is particularly important in listening and talking for several reasons. One, praise builds confidence, boosting willingness to participate, especially for those who find that more challenging than others. And learners can see that their efforts and contributions are valued. Praise should be aimed at the specific aspect of talk being developed. For example, younger children might be praised on their use of the word because when sharing a reason and not for the reason itself. Likewise, with older learners, working on the cognitive aspect of summarising in listening and talking, it is the conciseness and grouping of ideas that is to be praised, not the actual content of the summary. One way to instigate and support discussion in the class is to use a technique called fed-in facts, where a new piece of information is shared with the class in groups every few minutes to keep the discussion going. We're now going to give this a go. So at intervals, a new quote around the importance of praise in listening and talking will appear. You should perhaps stop the video in between quotes to give the opportunity for talk. In trios or fours, give it a go and don't forget your talk tactics. Quote 1. Quote 2. Quote 3. Fed-in facts is just one way to get learners talking and to introduce them to talk tactics, whilst at the same time building up knowledge and understanding. A talking web also helps young learners see how a conversation is built up. The ball of wool or string is passed around the group to each individual holding on to it as they make a contribution before passing the ball to the next person who speaks. A concept cartoon, originally designed to introduce science concepts, also allows learners to put talk tactics into practice. It typically represents a scenario with different characters expressing different viewpoints or ideas about a concept. Some might be correct, others might be misconceptions. The learner discusses the information given by the characters. Talk tokens also give structure to a discussion. Each member of the group is given a set number of tokens. Each time they contribute, they use one of their tokens. Once an individual's tokens have been used, they have to remain quiet and listen. Talk tokens ensure everyone gets the opportunity to contribute, encouraging learners to think about their contributions and help prevent one voice dominating the conversation. In the short video that follows, education consultant and writer Will Ord explains how we can use Lego bricks to build on talk, creating a focused discussion rather than just chat.
I've been practicing philosophy for children for about 23 years, and I'm still learning about it. And that's why I love it. It's constantly challenging and opening me up to new angles and ideas about teaching and learning. One key element in philosophy for children is the development of communication skills, thinking skills, and children's curiosity. It's getting them to generate questions and for them to choose one to pursue in depth and with skill. So, one example of how we might upgrade the quality of communication, not just in a P4C session, but in fact any lesson when we have speaking and listening, might be to use some Lego blocks or stickle bricks, anything that connects together. For example, one way of using this is to give each pupil 3 blocks, and this is how many times they can contribute to any discussion. So let's say the teacher has asked, what do you think about bullying? One pupil might say, well, I think bullying is terrible, and all people, all the bullies, they are awful, so I don't want to know them. There's my contribution. That would go into the centre of the room. Now, the next pupil to contribute must show that my contribution has listened to that and will build on it. So I could agree with it because, or I could disagree with it because. I might give an example of it or a counterexample. I might ask a question about it. But the fundamental rule here is I have listened to that and my contribution is going to connect. Now, the next pupil, of course, is challenged to do the same. Have they listened to that? And how would they like to connect their comment with what was said there? So the children are essentially, literally watching themselves construct a line of inquiry. This is what we might call collaborative thinking. And this is what makes the difference between mere conversation and quality thinking dialogue. We started there, we built our next idea there, and so on up. Now that you might contrast with a mere conversation, where pupils are just throwing in their comments from all angles, but none of these things are actually connecting to take you on a journey of thought.
As we draw towards the end of today's session, let's take some time to reflect on the content. First, we heard from Kirsty and how digital tools can support our learners with listening and talking. Then we looked at talk categories and the benefits they bring to our learners. We explored the different talk types within these categories, thinking about how they could link to our progression pathway, thinking about what we do now and what we'd like to do in the future. Lorna shared with us some ideas about how these could be used in early level. We then took some time to consider talk tactics and sentence stems and the role they play in supporting the development of oral communication skills. The importance of teacher modelling was emphasised here. Finally, some ideas for the classroom were shared. Hopefully you can take these away and have a go tomorrow. Pause the video here and take some time to consider today's content and create your call to action plan, which can be found in the support resource file or use the QR code on the screen. What would be your 3 main takeaways? Tomorrow, what might you do different in your classroom? As you put your plan into action, think about what went well and even better ifs, and we'll take some time next session to share these. Continue when you are ready. Between now and the next professional learning session, put your call to action plan into action. Think about a talk type, try out talk tactics and sentence stems, choose a classroom idea, and don't forget to model. This video into action session is part of a new approach that we are introducing in an attempt to support all schools and all practitioners across SBC to engage with the same message and activities, but at an individually convenient time. By providing video content with in-person facilitators in each school, whilst not the same as full live sessions, we can achieve widespread learning. Your feedback on how to maximise this approach is really valuable. If you have any questions of the follow-up tasks linked to today's sessions, please contact the professional learning team on the email address shown below. Now that we have explored the 2 talk categories and talk types within them and looked at talk tactics, we will look at next session at how we plan for and embed listening and talking and oral communication skills into our classroom through using provocations, authentic questions, talking points and learning conversations. All that's left now to say is thank you for your time here today. Here's to making a difference to the lives and learning of our children and young people. Should you wish to know more, on screen you can see a list of some of the available materials to support the teaching of listening and talking in our schools.